isolation and culture. Now the question arises, what are protoplasts? Protoplasts are naked plant cells, that means a cell without cell wall. However, they possess plasma membrane and all other cellular components. They are functional plant cells that lack the cell wall, which acts as a barrier to the cell's external environment. Plant protoplasts have garnered interest in various fields of plant biotechnology such as somaclonal variation, somatic hybridization, hybrid production, protoplast transient gene expression, plant gene functional characterization, and genome editing. Let's look at how this protoplast technology evolved. The technical breakthrough which led to the isolation of protoplast in large number was the employment of enzymes to degrade the cell wall. Cocking 1960 first employed enzymes to isolate protoplast from the root tips of Lycopersicum esculentum using cellulase. The enzyme was extracted from the fungus Myrothecium verrucaria. Plant protoplast can be fused and the fusion product cultured to produce somatic hybrid plant. This technique, the somatic hybridization, may lead to production of novel variants due to segregation of mixed organelles, cytoplasmic and nuclear gene recombination, and somaclonal variation. The new gene combinations made possible by protoplast fusion ensure that new plant varieties will be produced through somatic hybridization. Although spontaneous protoplast fusion can occur, PEG-mediated protoplast fusion has proven to be more important. Furthermore, in 1979, the development of a new technique, electrofusion, resulted in the efficient fusion of protoplasts. Protoplast can be isolated by mechanical and enzymatic methods. The mechanical isolation of protoplast by Klerker in 1891 is now of only historical importance. In practice, protoplasts are isolated by enzymatic method. A number of enzymes which degrade plant cell walls are now obtainable commercially. It is often found more effective to employ a mixture of enzymes including pectinase, cellulase, and hemicellulase to achieve optimal isolation. The two enzymes essential to isolate protoplast from plant cells are cellulase and pectinase. Pectinase degrades mainly the middle lamella and the cellulase is required to digest the cellulosic cell wall. Crude commercial enzymes carry nucleases and proteases as impurities which may be harmful to protoplast viability. The activity of enzymes is pH dependent and is also affected by the temperature. The optimum temperature for the activity of these enzymes is 40 to 50 degrees centigrade, which happens to be high for cells. Generally 25 to 30 degrees centigrade is found adequate for protoplast isolation. Let us watch a short clip on enzymatic isolation, purification and viability testing of protoplast.
Mechanical extraction of the protoplast is a crude procedure. It was first reported by Klerker in 1892. The suitable tissue is selected from which we need to prepare the protoplast. Like here is the tissue from where we need to prepare the protoplast. In the mechanical extraction, we need to cut the tissue with a sharp blade to remove the protoplast. Now here in this tissue, the cells are fully turgid and it would not be possible to make a cut in the cell wall without damaging the protoplast part of the cell. Therefore, the first step is to plasmolyze this tissue. So for plasmolysis, this tissue is incubated in the hypertonic solution. That is, the concentration of the solute in the solution should be higher as compared to the inside the cytoplasm. Usually it is performed by incubating the tissue in the 1 molar sucrose solution. This results in the shrinking of the protoplasts. So the protoplasts move away from the cell walls, and this will make enough space for making the cuts in the cell walls without damaging the protoplast. Now, plasmolyzed tissue is cut or dissected with the sharp blade into the smaller tissue segments, and in the process it will release the protoplast from the cells. Like here in the first case, the cut is made through the protoplast in the first cell, and therefore this protoplast is damaged or it will burst into the solution. However, in the second cell, the cut is away from the plasmolyzed protoplast. Hence, this will release this plasmolyzed protoplast in the solution when the cut will be made or cell wall will be removed. Similarly, from many cells, intact protoplast can be released in the solution when the several cuts are made to this plasmolyzed tissue. However, most of the protoplasts are damaged during this cutting procedures. Practically, mechanical extraction of the protoplast is not of much use, as the efficiency of the mechanical extraction method is very, very low. It results in very low yields in terms of number of protoplasts prepared through the cutting the plasmolyzed tissue. Therefore, it is a laborious and tedious method. Even to extract the minimum number of protoplasts, large amount of tissue would be required and need to be processed through the plasmolysis and cutting. Further, the cells needs to be plasmolyzed, and the maximum osmotic shrinking would be required for extracting intact protoplasts. This osmotic shrinking can impact the physiological status of the protoplast. Also, it has been found that the viability of the protoplast prepared through the mechanical extraction or mechanical extraction method is usually low as compared to the other methods. So the osmotic shrinking may interfere with the physiological capabilities of the protoplast. Further, this method of mechanical extraction is restricted to the tissues having vacuolated cells, as the success rate with the other tissues or cells is very, very low. Next is the enzymatic extraction of protoplasts. Enzymatic extraction method is the most popular and widely used for preparation of protoplasts from diverse type of plant tissues. Plant cell walls are the extracellular matrix that surround the plant cells and play several important functions, like these are the building blocks of the stable plant structure and provide mechanical strength to the plants. These are made up of cellulose, matrix polysaccharides and lignin. However, lignin is usually present in the secondary cell walls, and the protoplast preparations, for the protoplast preparations we use only primary tissues where the secondary cell wall thickness are absent, and so lignin will not be there. Here is the cartoon structure of the arrangement of the plant cells. If we zoom in at the junction of the cells, we find another layer, that is the middle axis. So the individual plant cells are joined together by special deposition of polysaccharide. It is called as middle lamella. Middle lamella is a wall that is made up of the pectins and holds or cements the cell walls of the adjoining plant cells together. The major component of the middle lamella are the calcium and magnesium pectates, and therefore enzyme would be required to digest the cell wall components as well as the middle lamella in order to release the protoplasm into the media. Enzymatic digestion of the plant cell walls was demonstrated by Cocking in 1960 for the first time, which opened up totally a new chapter in the history of plant science research. Cocking demonstrated that the cell wall digesting enzymes can remove the cell walls and protoplasm can be released into the media. Later, several different types of enzymes from different sources of origin in various concentrations were tested and methods was optimized. That resulted in the significant increase in the efficiency of protoplasm preparation using enzymatic digestion. Usually, combination of cellulases and pectinases are required for digesting the cell walls. The enzymes that are required for the protoplasm preparation are commercially available. Usually, pectinases and cellulases are the ones which are most commonly used for protoplasm preparations. Cellulases are usually used up to 2% of the concentration, and pectinases can be used up to 1% of their concentration for the digestion of the cell walls effectively in most of the plant species. However, in some plant species it may not be enough, and addition of another type of enzymes, that is the hemicelluloses, may be necessary. So basically the requirement of the enzyme and their concentration may vary depending upon the cell wall composition that varies significantly among different group of plants. These cell wall digesting enzymes are commercially available as different brand names, and depending upon the source, type of the enzyme and the mixtures, these may have their specific pH and temperature requirements. Usually most of these enzymes work in the pH range of 4.5 to 6 and the temperature range of about 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. Even plant-specific cell wall digesting enzyme cocktails are also available for few plants. These cocktails have been optimized for the best result in these plant species. Now, based upon how the pectinases and cellulases are used for digesting the cell wall, these method can be grouped into two categories. One is the sequential method, or also called as two-step method, and second is the direct method, or a one-step method. So the first is the sequential method or two-step method. So in the sequential method, pectinases and cellulases are used separately, and hence it is also called as two-step method. First, the small segments of the target tissue are prepared. Now, in order to release the protoplasm from the plant cells, we need to remove the plant cell walls as well as the middle lamella. Middle lamella is the deposition of calcium and magnesium pectates, and if we dissolve the middle lamella, the individual cells will be released, or the cell walls will be more accessible for the cellulase enzymes to chew. Therefore, the first step is the tissue segments are incubated with the pachynases to dissolve the middle lamella. So this dissolution or dissolving of the or chewing of the middle lamella will release the individual cells. After the digestion of the middle lamella, solution is usually filtered to remove the debris and cells may be washed to clean. In the second step, the tissues, tentatively the individual cells, is incubated with the second set of enzymes, that is cellulases. In this step, cellulases will digest the actual cell walls and would release the protoplast into the medium. Again, the solution is filtered to remove the debris and washed. So in this way, pachynases and cellulases are used one after another in a sequential manner, and hence the method is called as sequential digestion method or two-step method. Next is the direct method or one-step method. So in the direct method, both the enzymes or both group of enzymes, that is the pachynases as well as the cellulases, are used together to digest the cell walls and middle lamella. So the small tissue segments of the target tissue are prepared and are incubated with the pachynases and cellulases in optimal conditions of the pH and temperature. The time taken to complete the digestion may vary among different plants and need to be optimized. After the digestions are complete, the solution is filtered and the protoplast may be washed to clean up. So next is the purification of the protoplast. Now, after the tissue is digested with the required enzymes, that is the pachynases or cellulases, in addition to the protoplast, the solution mixture may contain lots of debris like undigested leftover materials or undigested cells, digested segments or remains of the broken protoplast, and enzymes and other components used for the digestion reaction. Usually the large debris like the cell clumps or the undigested large tissue fragments or tissues can be easily removed by filtration through the nylon mesh of the pore size of about 45 to 55 micrometer. In order to remove the smaller debris or dissolved contaminants like the enzymes and other components released from bursting of the protoplast, mild centrifugation is performed, usually around 500 rpm or even less, where the protoplast will settle down in the palate. Now the supernatant is discarded and it is replaced with the fresh medium. These protoplasts may further be washed, that is the centrifugation and resuspension in the washing media may be repeated few times. Further, if the protoplasts are suspended in the osmoticum or hypertonic sucrose solution like sucrose solution of about 20% concentration, after centrifugation, the viable protoplast will float on the top surface of the sucrose solution, forming a band, and these can be slowly or carefully extracted and resuspended in the osmoticum or in a fresh tube using the liquid media of suitable osmoticum. And further they may be washed several times, again resuspending into the washing media before they can be transferred to the culture medium. Now the protoplast solution may contain subprotoplast as a contaminants too. Now, what are these subprotoplasts? Now the protoplast may split into two or more smaller entities, and these smaller entities which are formed by splitting of the protoplast are called as the subprotoplast. Here is a plant cell. The plasmolysis of this plant cell will result in shrinking of the protoplast. Further plasmolysis may result into the splitting of this protoplast into two or more subunits. Only one of these subunits would carry the nucleus, and these fragmented segments or subunits of the protoplast are called as the subprotoplast. Now, depending upon the content of the subprotoplast, like what do they contain, whether the nucleus is present or absent, whether the entire cytoplasm is present or just the part of cytoplasm is present, these may be categorized into different categories. The first one are the karyoplasts. So if the subunits formed by splitting of the protoplast have the original nucleus, which is surrounded by some amount of cytoplasm and the plasma membrane, this structure is called as the karyoplast. These are also called as mini protoplasts. So another one are the microprotoplasts. So if these subprotoplasts, they contain only the fraction of the nuclear material and little cytoplasm along with the plasma membrane, these are called as microprotoplasts. Similarly, the cytoplasts are the subunit structures that has almost the entire cytoplasm of the cell but lack the nuclei. And if only the fraction of the cytoplasm and outer membrane are there without the nuclei, it is called as microplast. For the culturing purposes, only the complete protoplast should be used. The advantages of the enzymatic method. Now, the use of the cell wall digesting enzymes for the preparation of the protoplast have made it possible to make large-scale protoplast preparations. Enzymatic methods are easier to execute and they does not require any specialized equipment, and yields are much higher as compared to the mechanical method. The percentage of the viable protoplast is also much higher as compared to the mechanical methods. Further, the osmotic shrinking is required at the minimum level, and therefore percentage of the subprotoplast formed during the protoplast preparations are also much less as compared to the mechanical method, where plasmolysis is induced to the maximum level. Theoretically, protoplast can be prepared from any of the plant tissues using enzymatic methods and is not restricted to the vacuolated cells. However, the leaf mesophyll cells and the cells from the suspension cultures are the good sources for the preparation of healthy and viable protoplasts. Next is the protoplast viability. Now, once the protoplasts are isolated, in order to use them for further applications, protoplasts should be intact, healthy and viable. Only the viable protoplasts would be able to divide and regenerate. Therefore, it is very important to test the protoplast viability. There are several methods that can be used to check the viability of the isolated protoplast. First one is the fluorescent diacetate staining or FDA staining. Now, fluorescent diacetate is a non-fluorescent molecule. Further, it is a non-polar and can permeate across the plasma membrane freely. Therefore, when provided in the culture, it enters into the protoplast readily. It is a non-fluorescent molecule, therefore just the entry of FDA in the cells will not give any indication of protoplast viability. However, it is a substrate for the esterase enzyme which will be present in the viable protoplasm. Esterase enzyme digests the FDA and releases a polar part or polar molecule, that is a fluorescein, which fluoresces green under the UV light. Now the fluorescein cannot permeate freely across the plasma membrane and hence accumulate in the protoplasm and can be analyzed under the UV light. In the dead and the broken cells, it will be lost or would not accumulate because of lack of the enzymatic activity. Similarly, Evans blue staining can also be used. However, it stains the damaged cells. It cannot enter the viable cells by itself and accumulates only in the protoplasts that have lost their plasma integrity. Therefore, the dead cells stain blue and the intact or viable cells remain unstained. Similarly, phenolphthalein staining can also be used to stain the dead cells. It stains the dead cells red. In other methods, photosynthetic activity or the oxygen uptake of the protoplast can be measured as an indication of the viability of the protoplast. Or simply analyzing the ability of the protoplast to undergo mitotic division can be a good indication of protoplast viability. Next is the protoplast culture. In order to culture the protoplast, the